Ireland are at home to France this Sunday in the Six Nations Championship. And while France are coming off the back of a strong performance last weekend, there is one aspect of the defensive system that Ireland can expose should they weigh up that risk-reward factor. So before I start, I would like to point out this video is kind of based on the evidence of the defensive system that France employed against Italy. And while it may change going into this weekend, I highly doubt it given what France will know about Ireland's attack. So on average, Ireland's width that they typically carry from a ruck is about 10 metres, with a lot of that based off runners from 9 to generate some momentum. Now the problem with that for Ireland is that France like to condense their defenders close to the ruck and protect the middle of the pitch while leaving the space out in that wider channel unoccupied. To stop you from passing the ball to that wider space, France would employ a heavy blitz defensive line, especially kind of first phase. So let's have a look at a few examples here from last weekend and how Ireland could potentially exploit that space out wide on Sunday. So in the first clip here, we can see how condensed that France defence line is already. And when we get to that wider angle, you can see just 3 defenders here in half of the pitch. And after this ruck, you kind of see the line speed from the 10, 12, 13 in order to shut down that space for the Italian attack. In this example here, Italy have got a really good rolling maul from a full line out, and straight away you can see the line speed from 10, 12, 13 again, but just one defender marking half of that pitch. So Italy do put it through the hands here, but the French D-line scrambles back and they make the tackle in the end. We now see that French D-line condense again, get a little bit of change out of here with this little pop pass very close to the ruck. And eventually, Italy work a nice screen here to get the ball back to that far width where France have a couple of forwards left from that original maul. They get good gain line on both occasions when they went to those wider channels and not so much when they went in around those rucks real tight. So France defending just outside of 22 here, and we can see just how hard it might be for Ireland to break through when carrying close to the ruck. So another option for Ireland for the Ireland attack is when they do get the ball to these wider channels and the French covers well, we can kick through to the space behind, which should help us gain some territory. In general phase play, a number of occasions I noticed both French wingers using the 15-metre line as almost like a guardrail for when the defensive line ends. They kind of dictate where that ends. So if Ireland can kind of get both wingers to really hug the touchline, they might entice the wingers out further to promote some space back on the inside for the others, and that's kind of what happened here for the Italians with Garbisi going through the middle. So turnover ball here for Italy. Ball is kind of immediately moved to the far wing, and what I want to highlight here is just how condensed that French D-line gets again and how much space they actually leave in that far half of the pitch for a potential cross-pitch kick. So if Ireland can get Billy Burns in this first receiver here, then we can get the likes of Lowe, Earls, Keenan challenging for the ball in the space there behind the defensive line. Now, unfortunately for Italy, it's the sub-front row in a first receiver, and he ends up carrying into the strength of the French defence and gets turned over ultimately. Moving into the last example here, I just want to simply highlight the aggressive line speed of the French backline, especially our first phase. So they do leave that space out wide again. They just back their line speed to shut down any attacking threat behind the gain line. So Irish backs are either going to be deeper than usual, or they're just going to have to look to hit that cross-pitch kick. What would that look like? Well, you don't have to go too far back in time to see an example of that working well from a very famous night in Paris. So, hope you enjoyed the game at the weekend, everyone. Come on, Ireland.